What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Taylor Hinton Speaks His Mind. Man, it's been a little bit. You know why? Because what we ended up doing more recently is we stopped doing our quote unquote support calls that we've had throughout the week. And the reason why is because simply our clients don't need support calls in a group setting every single day. And I think that that's a really cool testament to what we do here at Hinton Nation because Angela and I, we give our clients the opportunity to book in calls with us um, every single month. And then we have our check-ins and we have, our community pages where everybody likes to hang out and do their thing. And then we have our direct one-to-one DMs with our clients. There's a lot of different touch points inside of our retainer. And it's just cool to know that they don't necessarily need to jump on daily support calls to ask questions because they're getting all of their questions answered in one form or another within a 24-hour window at the very latest, excluding, vacations or something like that. So, anyways, I thought that that was really cool. And today is our Form Friday, but it's Sunday. Angela's, camping with her girlfriends. I am in another province right now. I had a one day with one of my clients. We spent 6 hours, had this whole itinerary built out where we were going to spend. I was thinking maybe 2 to 3 hours, but I gave us like 3.5 hours, time slot to do the workout part of the day, and then there was going to be a grocery shop part, and then there was going to be a meal prep part, and then there was going to be a mindset and organizational structure of your day part. And it ended up being like 80% workout. And we took a break for lunch at some point. I was at her house. She has a great home gym. Um, and that was super fun, but we spent most of our time doing the workouts, which was perfect because that's what she needed the most. Did a little bit of organizational stuff. So, all that being said, we didn't do Form Friday because I was on an airplane. And here we are now on Sunday to do our quote unquote Form Friday. We've got a couple things to review here. But what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I just want to see, I'm looking at my page right now, my coaching page for my clients. One of my clients sent over some videos inside of our DMs, and I'm just making sure that this entire page doesn't have anything, you know, uh, that would, I don't know, their personal information other than their name. I mean, you could look that stuff up anywhere, and that's not that big of a deal, first and last name. So if you care to look them up on Facebook, by all means, but you're not going to get any addresses, of course. So let me go ahead and pull this up. I'm going to start with Jeff. Jeff is a new client. He's referred by his wife, Jasmine, and Jasmine's been in the program for a year and a half at this point, almost a year and a half, a little over a year. Yeah, I think it's about a year and a half. And let's go ahead and take a look at Jeff's workouts. I'm going to pop this up here and see what we got going on. So these are Jeff's assessment workouts. And this is simply when we're getting our clients started off. I just want to see how they're moving with their technique, see what kind of stuff is stiff. We got some air squats going on right now. Overall, doesn't look terrible. It's hard to, we can't see his feet, so I can't see the ankle mobility. Maybe a little bit unstable there, a little bit off balance. You might, I'm assuming, I'm just going to come back to where you kind of had your little stumble. He didn't fall down, but just rocked backwards. So you were rocking backwards there, Jeff. It tells me that you're probably putting all your weight on your heels. I know this is a really common thing that people were taught, um, you know, in the early 2000s, maybe even mid 2000s and stuff. That's when I started lifting, was early 2000s. And it was always weight on your heels, weight on your heels. Don't let your knees go over your toes. And it's just, it's not founded in anything. There's no evidence to support that your knees traveling over your toes is inherently bad or going to shear your tendons and, cause any damage. It just doesn't. So it's harder on your back because when you have weight on your back and then you're trying to sit backwards at the same time, you're going to fall forward. Or sorry, you're going to fall backwards. Everything is pulling you behind you, including your own intention and body weight. So that is not a good idea. We don't want to lean back. I know I'm not criticizing you. This is just how we've all been taught. I was taught that. So no, we don't want to put all of our weight on our heels and prevent our knees from going over our toes. When you put your weight on your heels, your body is going to naturally dip forward. So you're going to hinge or your chest is going to come forward to help counteract all of that weight shifting backwards. And that inherently put so much tension and force on your lower back because that is where everything gets kind of your center of gravity starts to drift further back, and you don't have the same type of strength or power back there or stability. So when you try to sit back on your heels to prevent this arbitrary knee injury that's not going to happen from your knees traveling over your toes, you end up just putting way more pressure on your low back. And low back injuries with squatting is way more common than anything else. So we got a plank here. I don't need to see the plank, but that's fine. Thanks for getting that sent over. I do want to know how much time it took, so I'm assuming that you did put that in there for the workout portion. It looks okay. It's hard to tell. Your clothes are a little bit baggy, so I don't know if your knees are getting close to touching, or if your form or your core is starting to collapse a little bit. It's hard to tell there, but I'll trust that you did it the way that we want you to. Now let's take a look at this next one. We got an incline push-up, it looks like. So this will be a really good way to help us figure out what we have going on exactly with strength and technique. And this is solid. So one thing that happens a lot of times for people when they're doing their push-up is they just think about arms and chest and pushing upper body and all that stuff. And that is like the primary. But at the same time, we want to have good core engagement just for structural integrity. It's not like you're going to have it's not like you're going to wreck your low back from not engaging your core when you're doing a body weight push-up. But uh, you can, if you're doing that repeatedly over and over and over again, you're essentially teaching yourself the habit of having your, excuse me, it's the morning. I know I'm not a dad yet, but I'm starting to get to that stage in life where you're coughing and hacking up phlegm first thing in the morning. So uh, you start to get to that point if you keep relaxing your core when you're doing push-ups where you're always arching your back and everything that you're doing, and you have this reinforcement that arching your back is just normal for you, and we don't want that because that'll translate over to your deadlift and to your back squat, and that we know can cause some pain and pressure. So when you're doing your push-ups, Jeff, what I want you to do is squeeze your glutes and tuck your pelvis forward. Okay, don't arch your back. Do the opposite of what an arch is, which is tucking the pelvis forward. Basically, what I want you to do is try to flatten out your low back. Okay. It will actually somehow, for whatever reason, feel a little bit harder to do the push up, but that's fine. We just want to practice having good core integrity when you're doing these lifts. Okay. Let's take a look at this next one, see what we got. Goblet squat. So this is what looks like a case of tight hips and a tight back because we're not able to squat too deep. Let's see here. We're going to slow down the speed a little bit so I can pause once we start to see that breakdown. So you're good right here in your knees. It's a little bit unfortunate because like we're getting so much of the ceiling in this video, so I can't really see a ton of your body. And it's not all your fault. Everfit also has this weird, ridiculous fading of the bottom of the screen. So even the little tiny bit of the part of your body that I want to be able to review, it's like half blacked out when I'm trying to pause it, which is exactly what I need to do to see what's going on. So not all your fault, but we're getting to about a 45-degree angle in your knees before we start to see your low back cave in, right? So we're not even close to parallel with your squat yet. And your butt has a huge wink, which is when you are tilting your pelvis forward. In the squat, we're not trying to tilt our pelvis forward. In the push up, we are. So in the squat, we want to be able to maintain a flat back or close to flat back throughout the entirety of the movement pattern. But for you, before we even get to the appropriate depth, we're already seeing a lot of rounding. So this just tells me that we don't have a lot of mobility. We probably have a little bit of weakness, of course, right? That's why we're here now doing this thing. And you probably have a lot of tightness in your Achilles tendon. Because if your Achilles tendon was more mobile, that means that you'd be able to have your knee travel over your toe more while keeping an upright posture. And you being able to maintain an upright posture is what will help, probably more than anything, with not having your lower back round and your pelvis tuck forward. So the immediate short-term solution for you when it comes to this, Jeff, is to elevate your heels on 2.5 or 5 pound plates, the weights that you would put on the barbell, but like the smallest ones. If you can elevate your heels, which you can, so elevate your heels when you do this exercise, it's going to eliminate your Achilles tendon being a limiting factor in your range of motion or depth. Okay. The other thing when we're doing this, and this goes for all exercises. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go through the how-to videos that I've made in the past because there's some really good help on bracing and how to brace your core properly. But what I want you to think about, Jeff, is sit down onto a stool or a chair, and then I want you to, with your hands, take your thumbs right at your belly button, and then move your hands all the way around to the widest part of your waist. Okay? And then what I want you to do, without letting your chest rise, is I want you to take a breath into your stomach or your diaphragm. So as you breathe in, try to actively expand your stomach to let that breath in. You won't be able to take as deep of a breath as you do in your chest. And naturally, you're going to want, it feels more comfortable and more habitual for you to take that breath into your chest. When we breathe, breathing into my chest, I can take a really big breath. But into my stomach, can't really take as deep of a breath. So naturally, we take that breath in our chest, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to try to expand your stomach with that air. That's going to help you create that brace that we're going for. At the very least, it gives you a cue knowing that, okay, I have that tension in my stomach. Once you've done that, again, your hands are still around your waist right now. Take that breath into your diaphragm, so into your stomach. And as you do that, I want you to try to expand your stomach laterally. The reason why your hands are out by your hips, right at your waist, is because we want to try to push your hands out with your stomach as you take that breath. So once you've done that, you expand your stomach out with your breath. Then what I want you to do is create internal pressure in your stomach the same way as if you were going to the bathroom. We all know what that feeling is when you sit on the toilet. That is bracing your core. That's the most perfect example that I could ever give somebody. Rather than trying to go through all these different creative ways of trying to explain what how you're bracing your core looks and feels like it's different from your abs, it's expanding lateral. It's just sit down and imagine you're about to take a shit. That is what a really good brace feels like. So once you've created that brace that you know what I'm talking about, everyone knows what I'm talking about, then I want you to just hold on to that brace and try to relax. Not lose tension, but just relax, walk around, take a breath, hold on to that brace in your stomach, and practice doing that. Because right now, when you're squatting, you're just bending the knees, standing back up. I'm bending my knees, so this is a leg exercise. I know that this is working my quads and my glutes, so it's legs. Well, to be able to utilize the power in your legs as effectively as you can, and to ensure you're not going to get hurt, we need to brace our core too. So you need to really practice bracing your core when you're doing this stuff. And the reason why we're doing this now is not because this 20-pound dumbbell is going to do you in and you're going to be injured and not be able to work out for 6 months. That's not the case. That's not the point. The point is getting good and practicing this now, making it habitual now before we start to get stronger, lift heavier weights, push ourselves a little bit more. So we need to get in that habit. Essentially, what this is when you're squatting, when you're lifting weights, and this goes for everybody, be rigid, be engaged fully in the movement that you're doing. It's not just up and down and up and down and up and down until we've counted 10 reps and then we're done. It's try to hone in and make your body tense and rigid and in 100% control of your movement. You should at no point at all when you're doing these exercises, especially in the beginning as we're starting to ramp things up and just practicing and getting into, creating that mind muscle connection where it feels more natural doing this stuff. At no point should you ever feel like you can't control your body weight or your movement. So the way that I like to explain this or think about this is when you're exercising, I should be able to play Simon Says with you at the same time. And if I say Simon Says stop, you should be able to stop on a dime right there in that moment. There should be no momentum carrying you further down or further up or whatever, forward or backwards. You should be able to stop on a dime if someone were to tell you to stop, like freeze, don't move. Because if you can't, you're moving too quick, you don't have control of your body. We need to own our movement pattern before we start to progress the weights or, yeah, like increase the intensity or the repetitions or anything like that. So move under control, move with confidence, own your movement. This is normal speed? Yeah. So yeah, you're still kind of rocking backwards. There's weight on your heels, so you're not balanced with it. Brace your core. Your back's doing a lot of bending and flexing when you're doing this. You got to be rigid. Stay rigid. Get your weight off your heels. We're gonna practice this a little bit more. Okay. Good work there, brother. Do we have anybody who's popped in? We got a no? Good? Okay. Just wanted to see. Okay. Share my screen. Yeah, good. Okay. Perfect. So we got that. Okay, let's see what else we got going on, Jeff. Did I already just watch this one? It's your goblet squat again. Did you send it twice or did I just click on the same video? Push up, that. What's this one? That's weird. Okay, what is this? Ooh, we got a little bit of weight. Okay, so Jeff, this is just for you and me. But when we got started up, because of, um, some limitations, you said that you're not allowed right now to lift more than 50 pounds. Well, right now, I'm glad that I'm seeing this because what we have is 25 pounds on either side, plus it looks like another 10 pounds on either side. So that's 70 total pounds, plus the bar itself. And if this is a regular size bar, which it looks like it is, that's another 45. So you, my friend, have 115 pounds of weight that you're slinging around, which is more than double of what you said you're not allowed to lift. So I knew that, yeah, doctors, everybody, I'm not a doctor. I'm never going to tell you to do something your doctor says that you can't do, but I absolutely will question it and suggest that maybe you get a second opinion from another professional or something. But like, you're moving that weight around like nothing. I'm going to give you the feedback here in a sec. But, if you've had some type of injury or ailment or event that's prevented you from being able to lift for a while, right? And your doctor just immediately said, you can't lift any more than 50 pounds. Like, doctors aren't, doctors prescribe drugs. That's what they do. They give people drugs to numb pain or to alleviate certain issues. That's the primary use of their job. Ask your doctor, just to test my arrogance here for a second. Ask your doctor next time you see your doctor, how many hours of schooling did you participate in that was specifically on nutritional information? Ask them that because the answer is probably zero. Like it genuinely is probably zero. That's what we know. Like doctors do not need to have any nutritional schooling or education to get their doctorates to graduate. It's not required. Some of them decide to take electives that get that for them, but why would they if their schooling is already like 10 or 12 years long or whatever it is? And they've spent all this money with all these other courses. Like it's not cheap to become a doctor and it's not fast. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So taking a course that you don't have to do, I don't blame them for not wanting to do that, but I do blame the fact that it's not a requirement that doctors need to know anything at all about nutrition, which is the core problem for most people. That's not the case for Jeff. And obviously, we're not going to like go into the details of his medical history. But if a doctor ever tells you you can't lift more than 50 pounds ever again, something like that, you should immediately have some questions about what that is and maybe get a second opinion. Because the reality is, you're probably moving around more than 50 pounds most days. As a 31-year-old man who works a labor job, like you are 100% moving around heavy stuff. So let's review your lift here, which was your Romanian deadlift, I believe. So first things first, don't lift with that weight out in front of your toes like this. We want to have that bar directly over top of the laces of your shoes. Or to make it really easy and simple, the barbell should be touching your shins before you lift the weight because that's where your center of gravity is. We want to lift directly with where your power is. We don't want that weight to be having to be pulled into your body or swinging away from you. We don't want it to move around when you're lifting it up, which is going to happen when you're lifting it. It has to happen when you lift the weight from out in front of you. As you stand up, that weight's going to swing into your body. And it's not that you're going to get hurt or being thrown backwards or anything like that. The weight's not heavy enough to do that for you right now. But it's definitely unstable. It's definitely going to be harder. It's definitely easier to get hurt doing that. The further away the weight is from your body, particularly in a deadlift, the more tension and pressure you're putting on your lower back. Your lower back has to work so much harder to try to stabilize and bring that weight where it wants to be. So do your body a favor, bring that barbell over top of your laces. It should be touching your shins, okay? Before you lift that weight. And then this looks a lot like a Romanian deadlift. You're moving with a lot of confidence. I would want you to take your shoes off or get some zero drop flat footed shoes that don't have any foam in them when you're lifting, because this foaminess in the shoe, if I can, I wish that I could pause this video without this part blacking out the bottom of the video where I can't see anything now. So I'm gonna have to play the video and just talk through it, and you'll have to just watch as we're going. But look at your shoes. There's so much space between your shoe and the floor, particularly in your heel. See how you can see the actual shadow underneath the bottom of your shoe, and then we're on the floor? All of that extra space, all of that where your toes come up naturally with the way the shoe's designed and the heel comes up and all that foam, the foam itself is going to cause energy leaks, but because the shoe is like curved and rounded, it's creating so many energy leaks when you're trying to lift weights. And you won't know the difference right now because the weight is, just it's our assessment weight. It's not heavy enough yet, but absolutely you are losing a lot of the pressure and energy into the floor that you would like to be able to drive. When we're lifting weights, we are transferring energy that we have in our body into the floor as hard as we can. And you want that to be a very flat, smooth surface. We want it to have full contact so that every inch of pressure or every ounce of pressure that you put into the floor is received by the floor. But when you put a bunch of, here I'm going to use my toe spacers as an example. When you put a bunch of foamy, cushiony stuff in between your pressure, right? Can you actually even see me? I don't know. I'm going to assume that you can. Where's my video? There it is. No, it's not. Okay. Well, maybe you guys can't see me. I don't know. When you put a bunch of foamy pressure, I need to I need to do this so you guys can make. Here we go. When you put a bunch of foamy stuff in between the floor, which is the bottom, my bottom hand, and your foot, then when you try to press your feet into the floor to generate energy into the floor, which transfers back up through your body so the weight that you're lifting actually lifts, all of that jelly, foamy stuff is in the way. It's absorbing that pressure. It's absorbing that force. That weight that you're trying to transfer into the ground is being absorbed and dispersed. We don't want that. We want it to be right into that spot, as much pressure as we possibly can. So that's why I like to wear Vivo Barefoot. It's just a barefoot shoe brand. Um, you don't have to use Vivo. If you want to get 25% off, you can, but you don't have to. just barefoot shoes or flat foot shoes like Converse, Vans, those work just fine. Um, or just take your shoes off. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So that would be the first thing is let's get that bar close to your body. Okay. Let's take the shoes off. Let's get your shoulders pulled back to your armpits when you're doing this lift. Because right now, your upper body, again, very relaxed. And this goes for just about every exercise that you do. Whenever you're lifting weights in a rigid, strict movement, you're trying to lift heavy stuff, you're trying to move a lot of weight, we need to be rigid in your whole body, your entire body. Even if you're doing a bicep curl. If I'm doing a standing bicep curl, I am going to be taking a big breath into my diaphragm, squeezing my glutes to help stabilize my pelvis, and then squeezing that weight up as high as I can, right? If I'm just relaxed, my lower body's kind of chilling. I try to lift that heavy weight, and now I'm kind of shaking around like a leaf because I'm not stable. I'm never going to be able to lift as much weight. I'm not going to get very strong. I'm going to stay pretty much the same. So, good thing that we're catching this now. So, get that bar over top of your laces, okay? And then just bend down naturally. So, you don't have to worry about trying. Don't try to flatten your back out as you're grabbing the bar. Just grab the bar. Your back can be rounded and everything when you grab the bar, and then use the weight of the bar to pull your chest through and your armpits down to your hips. Now your back's nice and tight. And then you're just going to stick your butt out just a little bit to help flatten out your lower back. Because armpits down to the hips and pushing the chest through gets your upper back nice and flat and strong. More than it being flat, it's about creating tension and having a really strong brace in your core. Okay. And then when you kind of stick your butt out a little bit, that's just going to help keep your lower back in a good position. From there, with your armpits down to your hips, chest pulling through, because right now your chest is caved in, your shoulders are forward. So grab that bar, armpits down to the hips, chest puffs up, stick the butt out, and then think about pushing your feet into the floor hard. Not trying to lift the weight up, but push your feet into the floor. That is going to be a really pretty deadlift. And that weight is going to feel 50% lighter doing it too. Now, if this is your Romanian deadlift, what I want you to do when you're doing this is from the top, armpits down to the hips, puff the chest up. Just this is if it's a Romanian deadlift, this is where you will put your weight on your heels. Okay. So stick your butt back, keep your back nice and flat. Think hips back, hips back, hips back as you're lowering. See how your hips basically stay in the same spot? Like they're not moving forward or backwards. They're just right here and they're kind of just bending forward. What I want to see is your hips to finish here. Like we should see right now when you finish at the bottom, your butt is right there. So you only move back like a couple inches. But I'd like to see your butt finish here with that flat back and armpits down. Weight on your heels. That's going to create tons of tension in your hamstrings, which is perfect because this is a posterior chain exercise. We want to feel this in your glutes, hamstrings, and your low back. Okay. Good thing is that you look confident doing this. And ultimately, like I know I spent a lot of time breaking down this video here, Jeff, but truthfully, it doesn't look that bad. It's just some small technique and quality things that you're doing right now that you're not really going to notice much about it. It's not going to be a big issue for you right now. But as you get stronger and you want to lift heavier weights and really push the needle forward, those little technical things, they go a long way in making sure that you're being safe and doing it properly. So I'm assuming this is going to be your bent over row. Let's take a quick look. And yeah, looks like a bent over row. And it looks pretty good. Moving the weight real quickly. Like I like the speed on the way up when you're pulling right there. That's great. And I like that you're driving your elbows backwards. You're not using your biceps, right? You're not like caving your chest in. Chest is puffed up, like that looks great. Your shoulders are shrugged up a little bit to your ears right now. I want you to again, armpits down to your hips, depress your shoulders, push your shoulders down. And again, that row where you're driving your elbows back like this, that's really, really nice. I like that too. So driving those elbows back like that is awesome. But again, it's all about for you right now, it's all about remembering that every time you're lifting weights, we want to really practice having that strong brace. So brace your core. Okay, take a deep breath in your diaphragm. And for this one, watch the speed at which you move the weight back down. when the weight is coming back to the starting position, so when you're returning that weight down, when you're extending your elbows, you want to be twice as slow on the eccentric than you are on the concentric. Concentric being the pull, like where we just pause, you just pull the weight up. So that's a concentric. You're squeezing your back to lift that weight. Now, the reverse, where you're stretching those muscles back out to the start position, is the eccentric. And when you're doing that eccentric phase of the exercise, we want to be twice as slow as when you pull the weight. And the reason being is because one, it establishes better mind muscle connection so you can actually feel those muscles working a little bit more. It helps create a little bit more time under tension, which I don't normally emphasize so much because it's not the end all be all for you building more muscle or getting stronger. But when you have limitations on how much you're allowed to lift, particularly in the beginning, we can hack increasing stimulus by creating more time under tension. So if you were lifting like the heaviest weight that you could, you wouldn't have to be so concerned with time under tension because the weight is so significant that it's going to force progress. But when you can't lift weights that are truly challenging for you right now, by doing the exercise slower and just extending how much time your body is in that state of tension and stress, which is good, can help us overcome the lack of weight that you're going to be lifting, if that makes sense. So slow down the negative, feel the muscle working with this one, get a nice deep stretch. And for 90% of all exercises, maybe more than that, you're getting more out of the exercise in the stretching phase than you are in the pulling phase. The pulling phase, I like to think about is just getting the weight back to where it needs to be. It's just the reset. I'm not even thinking about, oh, this is where I'm building the muscle. I got to pull real hard because this is how I get stronger. No, I just need to get that weight back to the start position as fast as I can so I can once again have a nice, slow, controlled eccentric movement. You're just a little bit quick with it. The way you're doing it is more like it's more of a sports performance, athletic, powerful, explosive way to do it, which has its place, and we can absolutely get there. But we want to start with having that good mind muscle connection so your body's doing this under control. We got a lot of videos from Jeff, y'all. Okay, what do we got here? Is this is that? Do I keep clicking on the same video, or did you send multiple of the same exercise? I don't know, but we'll get it sorted. Okay, body weight, alternating lunge. This is overall good. So there's two ways that you can do a lunge. When you are standing more vertical, so when your torso is more upright, you're going to get more of your quad, the top of your thigh, working. If you wanted to work more glutes, then you would hinge forward a little bit more, and that will emphasize the stretch and tension on your glutes. I don't think this, you don't need to concern yourself with either one of the techniques right now. We just want to do it with good form and do it safely. So, once again, same kind of feedback as most exercises for you. The muscles that you know are working, you're focusing on having a good pattern and good movement with that. So your legs, you got a good stance, you're doing it with control. That looks great. But your upper body is so chill. Like it's just very relaxed. And I want you to focus on have that chest up nice and tall, be rigid, have good posture when you're doing this stuff, right? Because when we start to load weight in your hands, we don't want, your upper body swinging around, your shoulders to be doing all of this, and your back to be flexing and extending. We just want rigidity. So stand with strong, confident, tall posture that's not going to be swayed. Like if I come over as you're doing your lunge and kind of poked you in the shoulder, you would stumble over to the side a little bit. I want you to be able to maintain that position with a lot of strength. Okay. So, Jeff, that is your assessments, my friend. I am going to pause this real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Welcome everybody. So now we finish up with Jeff's assessment exercises. Thanks so much, Jeff, for sending those over. Now we've got Jasmine, actually, coincidentally, his wife. Balance. That's what she's asking about. Bad balance amongst a couple other things working on. A new move for me. Let's see what this new move is here, Jasmine. You got a rope? You can do some rope climbing? Yep. So this is great because right now, when we're at the beginning of these more dynamic, explosive movements, for anybody watching this thinking, why is she jumping around side to side? This isn't about muscle building. This isn't about getting stronger. That's not not every single exercise that we do is all about getting stronger and building muscle. There's stuff that we do to help increase agility, coordination, explosive energy, power. Those are things that will help translate to becoming more athletic and fitter and more coordinated over time, which is really, really important because most people are going to the gym and simply pushing weights around and yeah, getting bigger and stronger. And that's great. That's good for your health overall and longevity and preventing injuries and all that kind of stuff. That's great. But if you ever see somebody who doesn't participate in any sort of athletic movements, all they do is sit on machines and lift weights, and you ask them to go do a hike, their cardio is probably trash, okay, unless they're doing cardio, obviously. Or if they're playing any sports or trying to sprint or be athletic in any capacity, jump, move, dodge, be athletic, be coordinated. They look very out of place. They look like a fish out of water. And we want to not just lose the weight, like Jasmine's lost 90 pounds in this program, but also then develop a little bit more skills. And so this is some early practicing of that agility and coordination and balance. So this is good, Jasmine. This is great. You're just getting started with this stuff. You're taking your time, you're stabilizing, which is good. What I didn't want to see is you jumping as high as you possibly can into the air and then stumbling every time that you land. And before you even recover your stance, you then jump back to the other spot and basically falling off balance. We want to right now focus on just being under control. See how you kind of like you started the exercise standing, right directly in front of the camera, and then by the time you finished, you were kind of standing over here to the right side of the camera a little bit more. This is just a little bit of that coordination and balance stuff that we're trying to work on. So kudos to you on getting this stuff started. This is what I want to see. And don't worry about how high you're jumping or how fast you're moving or how low you're, standing in your squat at the bottom. Like you could, of course, we could criticize this and be like, hey, you got to drop your knee down a little bit more. None of that matters right now. All that matters is that you're able to jump gracefully, land softly, and try to land under control and very balanced. So if you can focus on that and get the stability part of it down a little bit less, kind of shaking around a little bit, over time, you build that up. Then, when you feel really confident with that balance and that coordination, then let's jump a little bit higher and try to recover with having to land from a higher distance. And then, when you have that, then we'll move a little bit quicker. And eventually, you'll find yourself in a spot where you can pop, 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 bounce with a lot of intention, a lot of speed, and a lot of balance. And you're basically using that energy, that recovered energy, that rebounding energy as you catch your weight lowering to the ground. You use that to jump right back up in very smooth, consistent, bouncing movement pattern. So we're going to get there. There's nothing for me to critique on this. Just keep focusing on the balance and the stability part. That comes first, and then you can work on the height, and then you can work on the speed. So nice job. Okay, Sonia, so glad we got to see this. Deadlifts, two working sets, 155 pounds, no straps yet, she says. That is cool. 150, no straps with that weight. I like it. See what we got going on here. She got to 165 for 3 reps with no straps, she said. 160, did I say 155 again? 165 is what she has in the comments. So she was able to lift even a little bit heavier than this without straps. Just out of curiosity, did you have your hands in that switch grip, reverse grip, or did you have like double overhand? Just out of curiosity for your grip strength. This looks pretty good, Sonia. Again, you've got the foamy shoes, and these are what would be considered training style shoes. So there's a little bit of foam, but they also are, relatively flat. Like there's a wide base. They're not super curved. You can see how the toe kind of comes up a little bit. These Style shoes are designed to be able to do just about anything, but not any one thing really, really well. So they're not super flat like powerlifting shoes or barefoot shoes. Like I wear my barefoot shoes on a daily basis with virtually everything that I'm doing. Um, and then there's also like the big foamy running shoes. You guys have probably all seen those, like endurance runners who have so like half the shoe is foam. It's super big, like Hoka's, right? So that would be terrible for lifting, but it's really, really good for running. Barefoot shoes are for most people not good for running. Some people run barefoot, that's fine. Um, this is kind of like a mix. This is kind of like the do-it-all kind of shoe. So not the end of the world. I'd like to see you do this barefoot. You're going to have more base and more stability. You'll be able to be more connected to the ground, and that'll allow you to be more stable and be able to lift more weight because you're not having those energy leaks with the shoe absorbing a lot of the force you're trying to generate. The big thing that I'm noticing here, so we get set up. I like, see Jeff, watch this. See how the bar is like really close to her shins. I know the plate's in the way, so you can't actually see the bar touching her shins, but I can tell from right here that bar is touching her shins right now. So Sonia, for you, and I'm going to slow this down so I can try to pause it at the same time. Let's see. So this right here is a really good position. Now, Sonia has really long legs. Like her legs take up 50% of her height almost, it seems like, you know? So, with that being said, those long femurs make it harder for her to get her hips down. This is something that I just worked on with Truly yesterday out here in Calgary. Truly had a very high hip position when she was deadlifting, and it basically looked like a Romanian deadlift when she was doing it. And yours was looking like that. Right here, you're pulling the slack out of the bar. I can tell what you're doing right now. You're pulling the slack out of the bar from this position right here, and then you're lifting from this with your back at about a 45-degree angle. See her arms, her shoulders, they're not slouched forward. She's puffing her chest up and her armpits are down towards her hips. So she has a lot of tension in her core and her back muscles are helping a lot with this lift, which is really good. Sonia, it looks like it's hard to tell from the video. Maybe it's the shirt that's throwing me off. It might be the angle. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But it looks like your elbows are slightly bent. We'll be able to tell when you lift this weight off the ground if your elbows extend more. If your elbows are still slightly bent here, really make sure that your elbows are locked out really, really straight when you're doing this. Yeah, so it looks like right now, as you're lifting this weight up, so you're pulling the tension out of the bar right now, it looks like your elbow's starting to straighten out a bit more. Make sure that that elbow, so armpits are down to the hips, but you're kind of like bent right here with that arm. I want you to push that hand down towards the weight and then armpit down. Okay, lengthen your arm as much as you can before you lift the weight off the ground because that right there is just going to help even more with creating that tension that you're looking for. So this first lift looks pretty good. Your chest is you're hinged forward a little bit more than I would ask for most people, but again, with your femurs being as long as they are, you're naturally going to have your hips a bit higher when you're deadlifting. But let's see how that looks as you continue on with your reps. Because for most people, what happens is they end up keeping their hips a little bit too high following that first rep. So your first rep looked really good. And then with each following rep, your hips start from a higher position each time. And I'd like you to try to reset. So once you get down to the bottom here, like let go of that grip for a second, get your hips, like kick your hips back up and then grab the weight again. Use the weight of the bar to pull your hips down and push your chest through, and then do that lift again. Because right now your hips are just rising more and more and more when you lift this weight. That rep actually looked like you tried to actively do it a little bit more. It was your last rep, you reset it properly. And so this is now your fourth rep here. So overall, this is not bad. Your hips, let's start from that first rep again. Let's take a look at where you start here. See your hip position there? Like screenshot this real quick, Sonia. I'm gonna wait a second so you can screenshot this. Screenshot this spot. That's where you're lifting in your first rep, and then your last rep is this. See where your hips are now? Now let's take another screenshot. See how your hips are a touch higher? Now compare those two photos. Every time you do a rep, drop the weight, reset your grip, pull your chest up, use the weight of the bar as you're holding onto the bar with the bar still on the ground. Use the weight of the bar to wrench your hips down more. So when I'm doing this, I'm thinking when I reset every single rep, I use the weight, pull my hips down, pull my chest through, lock my armpits down. You do those three things every single time you do a deadlift, you're going to be in a really, really good position. You're going to be very powerful when you do it. And yeah, you got up to 165, so you threw another 5 pounds on each side to do it for three more reps. Solid. Solid, solid, solid job. Just get your hips down a little bit. That's all you got to do. And that is it for Lift and Learn for our Form Friday on a Sunday. Hope you guys got a ton of value out of this. If you have any questions, you're not a client, you're thinking about signing up, you want to kind of know a little bit more about how everything works, just shoot me a message. If things are kind of looking good and I think I can help you, we'll look at booking a call and talking about what that would look like for you. But otherwise, hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your Sunday. I'm going to be heading on the flight here in a few hours back home and can't wait to see my missus and my dog. Kind of miss them both. Okay, that's it, everybody. Take care. Have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next one.